I didn't even realize, but yesterday was the anniversary of the ever-so-deadly Waco siege. A horrible event where the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms decided to, well, I guess we don't have evidence directly that one of their agents set fire to the building, but they let a building burn while they were completely surrounding it and, let 70 people die, including women and children, pregnant women, all sorts of people who had absolutely nothing to do with whatever their thing was they were trying to do. The typical excuse for this action given is that David Koresh touched kids and had child brides, and so I guess it makes sense that if somebody's touching kids, you should burn them alive along with all of their victims and a bunch of other people who have nothing to do with whatever the crimes were that were supposedly being committed. That I don't know. I guess maybe there are living victims of his still alive that can attest to it, but there was never any trial or anything like that. This was not doing justice. Let's put it that way. Especially since considering that only one of the 70 people who were killed was actually the guy they were going for. Actually, it's a decent analogy for how drone strikes work in the Middle East. I'm one of these people who's been warning about the possibility that the drone strikes could come over to America, back home, and start being used against us. But now that I think about it, we pretty much already had that with Waco. It wasn't drones, although I guess you could consider ATF agents to be drones of a certain sort, but they weren't mechanical drones, they were biological drones. Worker bees, essentially, who were assigned to the task of, raping and pillaging. Warriors who took pictures in front of the rubble. Holding up their guns, very proud of themselves, flexing their muscles. And they did it all on, well, if not live, at least recorded television. They invited the media to come watch the spectacle because they were proud of themselves. They thought that this was a good thing that they were doing, and that, after the Ruby Ridge incident, this was their chance to redeem themselves. Ruby Ridge, of course, is where you had a guy up on a ridge with his wife and child, and I believe it was also the ATF wanted to arrest him for some fake crime pertaining to gun ownership, I believe, which is exactly, by the way, that's what they were going after Koresh for. They were not trying to arrest him, I don't believe, for the child molestation or whatever it is that he was accused of. They were trying to get him on firearms-related charges, which are fake crimes, Second Amendment's pretty clear, shall not be infringed. So they were using that as a pretext to go in and get him. That's why the ATF were the ones that showed up. And so the ATF thought, everybody thinks we're the bad guys after Ruby Ridge when we went to go in and enforce this gun, this gun control. We murdered this guy up there, and it didn't make us look good. It made us look like murderers. It made us look like we're terrorizing innocent Americans who are just literally living out in the woods, not harming anyone. And so, let's go and do the right thing and arrest this bad David Koresh guy, and we'll have all the media watch as we burn him and his followers alive. And, a lot of people have said that, well, the ATF, they were stupid for doing that. That wasn't smart. They're a lot more than just stupid. They're evil. You don't think that way. You don't do things like that if you're just a stupid person, unless you are stupid in the sense that you're criminally insane. If you're someone who's so mentally deficient that you truly cannot fathom, the reality of your actions, that you have no idea what you're doing, that's the only way that you could write this off as stupidity. But if they really didn't understand what they were doing, why is it afterwards that when you had, the pile of rubble and all the burned bodies underneath it, did these agents start, taking each other's pictures, holding their rifles like they were on a hunting trip? Is it because they were stupid? No, I think it's because they felt like they were on a hunting trip. They were hunting down Americans. And so, after that, the federal forces, the feds, the military, they got a break. The government said to them, hey, you know what? Instead of terrorizing more Americans, the Waco thing made us look bad. Go terrorize the Middle East for a couple of decades. And they've been doing that. They've been doing this sort of stuff there. They've been murdering innocent people. for a long time in the name of, well, we got this one bad guy. Sure, we had to bomb 80 to 200, 300 people at this wedding or this funeral in order to get that one guy, but we got the guy, okay? Let's all pat ourselves on the back. This is going to come back home soon. It's going to come back home soon if if they pass any of these new gun control measures, if there's some kind of executive order banning ghost guns, guns built from 80% lowers, and the ATF tries to enforce that, then you're going to have a bunch of Ruby Ridge situations. Who knows, there might even be some compounds of preppers out there that probably have used 80% lowers, and if the ATF finds out, they'll go there, siege them, and burn them alive too. I mean, remember, the whole narrative after the January 6th thing was that these boomer cons who went to Washington and decided to parade around with their flags were domestic terrorists, and that the Bush and Obama administration knew how to deal with terrorists. What you do with terrorists is you drone them, you send in special operations forces to parachute in or get down in their helicopters, and they rappel down a rope, with their night vision goggles, looking all super stealth, and they run in and they shoot you and then they run out. That's the way many people in the media feel that we should be dealing with the political opposition in this country. And as we've seen from Waco, this is not at all unprecedented in recent American history. I'm not talking about the 1860s or the 1820s or the 18th century. I'm talking about 1993. That's after the fall of the Soviet Union. That's pretty darn recently that you had the federal government going out and murdering 70 Americans with no consequences. People just said, gee, glad I wasn't them. That sucks. But otherwise, people were too scared, too cowardly, too ignorant to really put up much of a fight about it. Now, thankfully, I think that history is on the side of the good guys as far as Waco is concerned. Yesterday, the ATF, whoever the tone-deaf lunk is that's running their social media, that guy needs a new job. Or I should say, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what that guy would be qualified for, flipping burgers at this point. I don't know how dense you have to be to do what they did, and that is they put out, a tweet saying, hey, remembering Waco, and it had some, I think it was like a GIF or something with the names of some ATF agents who had died, and it was just the most beautiful ratio I've ever seen. Like 46, well, not the most beautiful, but a pretty good ratio, like 4,600 comments to hundreds or so likes. They simply enraged people by putting that tweet out. There was nobody saying, "Oh, thank you, ATF, for your service." There was none of that nonsense. Thankfully, people treated the ATF's tweet as if Al Qaeda tweeted, "Hey, remembering 9/11," and then listed the names of their poor hijackers who were martyred on 9/11. I'm glad to say that when the name Waco comes up, the image of the ATF that comes to most people's minds who are familiar with the situation is that of a terrorist organization, not of some friendly police agency just trying to protect and serve. Most of the people at the ATF and throughout the federal government are evil, and as institutions and members of those institutions, they are absolutely enemies of the American people. They serve no purpose but to suppress our freedoms. All of these agencies, or none of these agencies really have a very long history going back before the 20th century. They were all created to infringe on our freedoms and to make us more subservient, to make us more vulnerable to whatever it is the feds want us to do. No matter what industry you're in or what aspect of life we're talking about, anybody can have their life upended by one of these executive agencies just issuing a decree from some nameless bureaucrat. Not even an executive order, just the agency itself saying, hey, we're going to ban these guns, or hey, you can't drink milk that hasn't been pasteurized. Oh, and if you do, we'll throw you in prison. Now, I'm paraphrasing there a bit because I'm not exactly sure if the FDA are the ones, or the USDA are the ones who are going to come and put you in prison for drinking raw milk. Because from what I understand, a lot of state departments of agriculture do that as well. It might be an overlapping thing to where if the state didn't, the federal government might come and do it too, kind of like federal marijuana bans or federal drug laws in general. Now, on a more specific note, what warms my heart about people, just demonstrating their contempt for the ATF in this case is that, as I said, the ATF was coming to take the Branch Davidians' guns. That was their expressed purpose. And retroactively, that's been made into, Koresh touched kids, and so that justifies this, even though that I don't believe that's what their warrant was for. Oh, and of course, they didn't have a warrant to burn 70 people alive. Pretty sure of that. I can say that without referencing the documents directly. So anyway, I think that this shows very little tolerance for the ATF enforcing those kinds of rules, and it's very rare that anyone gets arrested or charged for an NFA violation. That's National Firearms Act of 1934. You just don't hear about it, and that's because it's kind of hard to catch somebody, and people generally are going to follow that law because they don't want to lose all their rights. If you're a gun owner, you're in a very precarious position because you get arrested once, you lose everything. If you're really into guns. If you have a really nice collection, you get one felony on your record, you're done. It's over. They take away everything. And so they already feel persecuted. So if the ATF decided to get more aggressive in the future and start rounding up people's guns, and we saw more situations like Waco and Ruby Ridge, the reputation of the ATF, their ability to enforce their edicts, would continue to decline. And so that, again, is a reason to be hopeful. There is a limit, I think, to what the federal government can get away with. A lot of people have pointed to the lockdowns over the past year and said, see this? This is proof that nobody's going to do a goddamn thing when they come to take your guns because, look, they took everything else away. They took every other right you have, your basic freedom to leave your home, and nobody did anything. But the difference is that, at first with the virus stuff, people were able to buy into the argument that, this is just for our good health. Whatever the excuses that they come up with to take your guns, people are going to know it's just an excuse. And so they're going to oppose it to begin with. They're not going to give in and then decide, no, you were lying, so we're going to try and take our guns back. That's not going to happen. And also the areas that were most severely, locked down and lost their freedoms are places where they, would probably give up their guns anyway, and in many cases already have. These major urban centers are not where you're going to see people trying to hang on to their guns in the face of some kind of confiscation scheme. It's going to be, the sparsely populated rural areas that are going to defend their rights most vigorously. And in those areas, and in, certain other states, like Florida where I live, we didn't have any lockdowns really to speak of. I've never seen anyone be told to, to even wear their mask. Unless maybe, in a store or something. But even then, no, I've been walking around stores that have signs that say, hey, you got to wear your mask, like Home Depot or something. There's still people who don't. Nobody's being forced to do anything here. So, you can't say that, these lockdowns are proof that, you guys in Florida, you're going to lose your guns. No, it's nonsense. Maybe you could say that about New Yorkers, but New Yorkers pretty much already lost their guns. Same with Californians. Californians started restricting the Second Amendment way back in the 60s, under Ronald Reagan. Supposed, Mr. Conservative. Well, actually, I believe Mr. Conservative was Barry Goldwater, but close enough. So, it was a sad day yesterday, but at least it was a good opportunity for everyone to come out and express their disdain for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. an agency who, if they are to exist at all, should exist to empower Americans to obtain alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. They should not be, oppressing them and trying to deter them from doing so. I think if we want to, preserve the jobs at the ATF, we should retool them to go from people who take guns away to people who give away guns to needy Americans who can't afford them, because, gun prices are very darn high, thanks to, in large part, government manipulation, blocking imports, these sorts of things. But I think, if we had a government program to where, because we do have a Second Amendment right to bear arms. This is something I would propose if I were a congressman. Have the government provide essentially an at-cost firearm that Americans can buy at an affordable price, that the price is never going to fluctuate, just whatever the cost, the government goes and buys them, contracts to have them built in bulk. Like let's say they just build a bunch of 1911s, that was the old government issue pistol, or M9s or whatever, I don't know, something that, find something that would work well as just a, vanilla gun, nothing pretty about it, just something that works, and sell it for like $200 or $300, whatever the cost is that the government could get them down to. Try something like that. If you really want the government involved in guns, that's the only way they should be doing it. The ATF should be helping distribute surplus military weapons to civilians, that sort of thing. Selling government surplus ammo, that's what the ATF should be doing. So on that positive note, I think I'll end it here for today.